after a very interesting opening, white has emerged again up a pawn. Black had to sacrifice it. Let's put it this way, so that he's not getting in even greater trouble. And now the question is how to proceed. So keeping the tension here probably means that, again, I'm not totally sure it's going to qualify, but it's important that you understand that by winning a pawn, it's not enough. You still haven't won the game, and it's very easy. This usually happens at a subconscious level, that you are seeking for clarity. Meaning, for example, let's say you get to this position, it's like, oh, I have a great position, I'm doing great, now let's get a normal position. For example, let's say, okay, I'm going to trade these guys here, my king is slightly weak, I'm up a pawn, probably it's not a mistake, bishop d2, takes, short castle, okay, probably I play something like a 4, queen b6, oh, how come suddenly he has a very good counterplay? Right, so that's how it usually goes. Let's say queen a3, rook c8, here, knight b4, and suddenly the opponent has a very, very good counterplay. And you're wondering, what did you do wrong? This usually happens at the subconscious level, because nobody is questioning these choices. The hand just makes the moves for you. But I think that here, it's also important for you to understand is that, again, like I said, extra pawn is not enough. And we are still trying to extract more weaknesses from the opponent. So that's why here f4 is the strongest move. I mean, obviously threatening a 5. So after f6, we kill the bishop, takes. And I really like this move. Really love it. Because, maybe now you can think about it. So black plays 9g6. Okay, I'm going to ask you a very provocative question. How are you going to stop short castle?
Okay, there's options, maybe queen b3.
But the question is provocative.
Oh, okay. Alright, attacking the knight or some more?
I'm sorry?
So attacking the knight and g6 some more, possibly? Or maybe just a3, just attacking things before.
Yeah, okay, a3, the bishop goes to d6. I guess he wants to attack your pawn at 4 also.
Yeah.
He wants to castle short.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to play bishop d6, queen c7, target the pawn at 4.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you can sacrifice the pawn e5, f5, f takes, f5. Okay, haven't really thought about it.
Yeah.
But
just pawn back to just scare the king, maybe.
I mean, the question is highly provocative because it's wrong.
Okay. Let's see. So maybe we don't have to stop the castles kingside. We just do something else.
I don't know.
Just develop maybe. Just help and see what happens.
I think this also partly qualifies for keeping the tension, because again, like I said, very often this happens at the subconscious level. For example, I mean, how easy it's to lose the control of the game. You play something like queen b3, right? It's a very logical move. I mean, the guy wants castle, I'm going to stop him. But did you ask yourself, does he really want a castle? Okay, that's a very interesting question when you ask like that. So let's say black plays queen, I don't know, queen e7. Okay, the bishop on b4 is annoying. I'm getting rid of it. a3, bishop d6. Okay, I need to develop my pieces. I play bishop d2. And guess what? He plays a long castle. And now I'm looking at this position. I don't even understand why I played queen b3 in the first place, which maybe is not a bad move, but I still need to hide my king. And after king c2, queen, let's say c7, suddenly things are not so simple. And it's very easy to lose the game thread here. For example, king e1, you can't take on f4, the knight of c6 is under attack, so I don't know, rook c8. It's a game. So it's a game, and your strategy has failed because we didn't think deep enough. So that's why here we go back, and that's why I said this question of how to stop the castling short is provocative, because we realize we actually want him to castle short, because this is where we have the majority of the pawns. And that's why we play h4, which also deals with any bishop d6, queen c7 attack ideas because we always play h5. If he plays h5, I guess g takes to h5, rook g1, and we suddenly can activate the rook with great force. So this is actually funny. He decides he's not going to castle. Why? Because he suspects if white is not stopping me to castle, it's also reverse psychology. Maybe he wants me to castle short, and maybe he expects me. For example, after the short castle, he thinks, okay, maybe now after queen b3, h5, suddenly white has an attack. Although this is, by the way, not very obvious, tell you honestly. So black probably still should have castled short, but he decides to be smart, plays knight e7, and now after a3, b4, bishop d2, we are keeping the tension. We are not yet defining our setup, and also we are playing against black's potential long side castle. You see, if you now play queen, what do you play? Queen d7, you need to account for ideas like b5, rook c8. You might not get castle at all. So that's why he played a6, and after queen b3, now it's already getting pretty obvious that castling is not in the cards because queen d7 is bishop h3 and g5. So again, it's not really clear where black even made the mistake, right? So probably it was a short castle here. He should have done. Maybe h takes and g6 was more interesting because the knight g6, knight f7, knight e7, it went back. But yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you. I felt a bit deep, but I've seen it that many people like to oversimplify immediately. Again, we keep tension here, right? We are not retreating back, and this is, I mean, the retreating back, regrouping, and simplifying is good when you suspect your material advantage is good enough, or when you're looking for some simplicity because the time trouble is approaching and you need to make simpler decisions. But here, you just want a pawn. The position is still a mess. So you need to continue to play in the same spirit and also try to extract some weaknesses, some mistakes from the opponent. Now, white play bishop e3. This is a still theoretical position. So when it comes to the trades, I think that it's not going to be a secret to you that you always want to be the one who gets something out of the trade. It's never automatic. It's never random. So every single trade you're doing, you are benefiting something. I mean, if you're not benefiting, you're simply not doing this. So here, again, the question is, you were asking for pawns, now I'm giving you pieces, the piece tension. The question is how to understand, are we going to take on e3 and are we not going to take on e3? What do you think?
I think that's, you don't want to take an e3 because white has a lot of options here to take back and benefit himself versus black. The not taking there is basically a tension that doesn't open up files, doesn't open lines, and doesn't open up opportunities that you can attack because you're not castled yet.
But we are going to castle.
Yeah, so we want to castle first. So maybe castling kingside is basically better than bishop takes e3 first.
Okay, but let me ask you, what's the difference? So you take on e3, he takes queen e3, you castle short, or if I castle short, you take on a7, I take on a7, you play queen e3. What's the difference?
Yeah, so I was thinking that actually with the f takes e3, if they take on e3 with the f pawn, they take.
Oh.
Yeah. Take an e3, f takes e3. And saying that I want an f file open. Maybe
meaning here.
Yeah, f takes e3. Then just target this way.
No, this is not going to be good. You know why?
Yeah.
Because you have a very good outpost on e5.
Okay.
So, for example, after, let's say, knight g6, knight e2, knight e5, knight f3, d6. The problem for black is that, for white, there's a fair chance that his attack is going to be evaporated.
Okay.
Because this bishop is not working. The f file you can't really benefit. So I can just safely castle short, and you have very major difficulties to even create a battery of the queen and the rook.
Okay. So
I have a third outpost on e5. This is really great. And I think that white wants to combat this e5 square, because it's no secret that the strongest outposts, they're in the center. One of these, oh sorry, not here. One of these 4 squares. If you control them, I mean, you're controlling half of the board. After bishop e3, I think it's queen e3, because white makes good use of this queen, like also the actual bishop. It controls the long diagonal. So we are fighting for the squares. It's always a fight for the squares. And answering my provocative question, what's the difference between bishop e3, queen e3, short castle, or short castle, bishop a7, rook a7, queen e3? The difference is we can play b5, rook c7, and in any rook doublings, we are going to be up a tempo. Not a big difference. It's something, right? All the good things start with some small things. So let's go back. Let's go back with this example. You see, we are keeping tension. We're not trading. I mean, you want, you can take. He plays c4. He doesn't want to do that. I don't take. Knight g6. There you go. Also giving him opportunity to make a mistake, by the way. 4, knight 4. Yeah. I mean, I don't really count on it, but it's nice to have it. After knight g6, c5. All right, and now the question is how to proceed, because white has now the knight c4 threat. Knight c4, knight e6, knight b6 looks pretty strong. And despite the fact that knight f4 would be a very common idea, the thing is this knight c4 is pretty annoying. And even if we find a very good move d5, c takes is b5, we get a very strong dark for bishop. After knight b6, takes. I say that for white it's a very easy game. Knight c5 comes in, e takes on d5 comes in. I'm sorry. So especially when I'm playing against a weaker opposition, meaning compared in elo, I can't go here. I'm looking for more complex positions where I am giving my opponent chance to make mistakes. And by the way, this is also something that you can take away yourself home when you're playing against a weaker opposition. And I've heard that this excuse many times. You know, when I'm playing against a weaker opponent and let's say I don't win it or I lose, there's the excuse, oh my goodness, he was playing so good today, right? He was playing these, he made no mistakes, right? The guy's supposed to be weak and he's not making any mistakes. And then I laugh usually and I say, but what did you do to make his life difficult? And there's like, yeah, actually, you know, not much, because it really depends how you play. If you're playing simple logical chess and you're like demanding the opponent to come up with the only logical moves, he's gonna find it. I mean, he's like, let's say 1800 and he still knows how to play more or less good chess. He's gonna find it, right? I mean, you're asking him, like forcing him to come up with the only moves, like he finds it. And that's why it's very important when you're playing against weaker opposition, maybe it's also part of the tension, that you're giving him choices. And you give a choice, always give a choice. And this is where they get confused, because they can't really compare. And if you consider yourself the stronger player, you are better by making choices. So like here, I'm giving him a choice to take on a7, every single move. He doesn't really understand it. So he's kind of guessing, he's not sure. Again, here I play b6. Again, I'm inviting him to make some choices, consider to take on a6. He needs to understand what he's gonna take on b6, or he's gonna play rook c1. If he plays rook c1, I might play b5, right? So he's looking at this and he's again kind of guessing and not understanding what's the right choice. So he decides to not to keep the tension. He can't keep the tension. He takes on b6. So I take on b6, and again, he had to play knight c4, keep more tension. He releases the tension. Queen b6, so I won this small fight because now my queen is very active. His queen is not. Although the position seems pretty normal. Knight c4. Okay, engine says queen b8. I'm sure I think queen b4 makes more sense. I want to play knight e5, a5, a4. I have a very easy plan. And again, he can't keep the tension. Already here, it's actually a bit tricky for him to play. So he's looking for a way to clarify. Yeah, the seek for the clarification often leaves the opponent in trouble. So look at the white's moves. So he makes some sort of natural moves. queen e3, straddling something on b6. I carry out my plan. He plays knight b6, a fork. And in the end, he realizes he's in deep. Why? Because apparently he just traded his knight, which made how many moves? 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. I made 0 moves. So this means it's not a good trade. And I want to achieve my plan of playing a4 and knight e5. And this is where his position just collapsed very quickly. So you know, mistakes come in pairs. You make one mistake, you are unhappy, you feel something is wrong, you make the second mistake. And after queen b6, his position collapses. Because now this diagonal is killing queen e3. For example, let's say knight e7 takes, and he is left with a busted pawn structure. And okay, I mean, the game, of course, still continues, but this is an immortal knight on e5 against a terrible bishop on f1. Knight h4, knight f3 checkmate ideas, so it's just very, very unpleasant. Rook on b2 is very strong. And after this queen b6, his position collapsed. So clearly white was not able to hold any tension, right? So here we are holding the tension with the pieces. And I think that part of the success was to give him the choices, right? So that he has to choose. Because if I'm going to play, okay, let's say you're playing against a weaker opposition, you can't hold the tension here. You think, okay, I got to trade, you know, it's in my mind. I can't deal with this bishop here, so I take it here. So how difficult it is for the opponent to play queen e3? Not very difficult. He finds it. So you think, oh, I have to make d5 breakthrough. Why? I don't know why, but let's say I'm going to play d5. So the opponent thinks, okay, he takes on d5, opens the bishop. It's not a very difficult move to make. Okay, so he takes on d5. And then you take on d5 and the knight. He thinks, okay, the queen is under attack. I got to remove it. I go here. So are you really giving your opponent hard time here? You're just making some moves, right? Meaning he is not in trouble. It's like we're literally forcing the opponent to find these moves. These easy moves like queen e3, takes on d5, queen g3. Okay, I could continue another. Let's say you play, I don't know, let's say knight b4 maybe. Okay, knight b4. Okay, you suddenly attack this bishop here. He's thinking, okay, I don't want to ruin my pawn structure. Bishop b4 is pretty obvious move, right? Then you think, okay, my knight on b4 is under attack. Maybe I need to push there more. f5. Okay, he thinks the only thing I can do here is take here. After knight c6, he thinks the only move I can make is here. So again, this is very bad strategy from black because we are not doing nothing to confuse the opponent. We are giving him no choices. You see, we're like extracting the only moves from the opponent. And then let's say we play the game badly, and we come and complain, oh my goodness, he was so good. The guy was playing so good, he's making no mistakes, right? And that's what I say. Then I'm laughing, right? I mean, what did you do to make him make mistakes? And yeah, but so apparently the decisions were not the best ones, right? So that's why we need this tension. So about the tension, well, tell you honestly, even not knowing much about opening theory in this line, so he played h6, d6, I was like, okay, I mean, this line exists, but I have no idea what to play here. I know what's the idea. The idea to play either g6 or g5 at the king side. I play a4, expand. I'm pretty sure you're aware of the modern trends in chess, right? That space advantage is pretty important. So I can do this even without knowing much, right? So I take space at the queen side. If he's allowing me, I take even more space. And also notice that black is waiting for some kind of help for white, right? He's looking for some h3. He's looking for something. He's waiting. He's trying to extract something out of me. So I'm not allowing that. So knight c3 makes sense. Now the knight on f3 is doing not much, so we reroute it. Knight e2, knight e7, rook e1, these are easy moves, right? I mean, even if you are not knowing the theory, putting the knight on f1, knight e3, or I guess knight e3 to control the f5 and d5 squares, you are just improving the knight, right? I mean, this is a close position, so the loss of a tempo doesn't really matter. So he plays bishop e6. Okay, this is good news because now after knight f1, he's not happy to trade because he loses access to the light squares. He plays c6 to play d5, and now we take it because we have a target at the queen side, b4, right? Our plan is very simple. We expand at the queen side and we relied nothing is going to happen at the king side. So castle, knight a4, queen e8, c4, queen f7, rook a2. All of this makes perfect sense. Knight g6, I have no weaknesses. This means at the king side, this means I have no reason to be afraid that there's going to be something. So I play knight e3. Just in case, attach the pieces closer to the center. G3, yeah, it's questionable maybe, but I feel that I need is knight on g6 limited. I also make a window for my king. And now the question is how to properly deal with this move d5. Now there you go. There's your pawn tension you were asking. So it's never random. It's never random. It's never about, you don't have to take on d5 as many times as you can. But now it's important to understand how much tension can we keep. What do you think, by the way, before I jump in? What do you think? Queen c. Okay, but this is also pretty important. It's important that we don't allow the pawns to dictate the strategy of the game. Also make sure that you don't fall into another up solution, right? Meaning sometimes, again, this happens at subconscious level, that we give the pawns too much credit. Okay, they're nice to have them, but if let's say we play queen c2, are we not giving up too much just to keep the pawns on e4 and c4 alive? And are we not like excluding the entire queen side? Let's say after queen c2, what are they doing here? And I would be kind of concerned about my king's well-being now, right? Because it feels like half of my army is a bit pushed away at the queen side. And now I need to watch out for something at the king side, like h5, h4, or I don't know, something. So answering the question what I asked, we are going to partly relieve the tension. And since d takes on c4 is a threat, we take with the c pawn. Now e takes on d5 kind of makes sense because it gives up the f5 square. Although engine says e takes on d5 is the move, which is beyond me really. This is not how humans play. So c takes on d5 is responded, and now we try to carry out our idea, but also with the right hand, we kick off the opponent. So we play knight g4. Now the point is, he can't really get to the pawn, because if he takes on e4, I play knight f6, rook e4, I have his ruined pawn structure. And you see his bishop on g7 and knight on g6, they're not doing much. So he plays knight h7, which makes sense. How do we keep the tension here? Again, we never take on d5 because we improve his pawn structure, open the bishop on g7. This is pretty clear. So knight c5, we try to play logical chess, right? So knight c5 is activated, the pawn on e4 is indirectly defended. He plays h5, knight e3. You see there's no pins, right? D takes on e4, knight e4. I protect everything. And he plays g4, which is the key idea, right? And he wants to play knight g5, knight f3. So if we are tactically alert, we spot h4. Point is g takes on h3 is queen h5. Suddenly, right? You see the pawn on h3 is under attack. The knight on h7 is limited. Cute move. And now black goes berserk, knight f4. And now, if you want, what would be your response here? We are trying to be practical. We are trying to be not overly defensive. And I'll just tell you what are the threats. The threats are knight h3 check and take on f2. The second threat is d takes on e4 and win the pawn on d3. Two threats. And of course he sacrifices a piece. Of course, don't do it. It's a very logical suggestion, right? That's why I'm saying be practical. We keep things under control. Never gamble. I mean, gamble should be left for gamblers. I mean, if they want to do it, they do it, right? I mean, but good players, they're never gambling. That's the difference. That's exactly, yeah, rook f1. We are just practical. And the opponent is like, oh, the pawn on d3 is under attack. But this is a positional pawn sacrifice. I mean, we're talking about compensation, which is our second topic today. So rook d3, queen c2, he gives a check, king h2, he tries to be active, bishop b2, queen f3, he tries to be active, knight c5. and suddenly white's pieces spring to life. The bishop on g7, knight h7 don't do much. There's knight e6 threat. There's queen g6 threat. So after rook b4, bishop g3, black's position just collapsed. Yeah, so this was a pretty cool game. You know, I really liked it because there's a forcing sequence where black is just down an exchange. Very, very cool, very cool. And I really like this in terms of keeping the tension here. It's not really so simple. You can't like, I'm going to keep the tension here. You know, I'm not going to trade on c2 because I don't want to. I'm going to play queen c2. So there's more rules at stake here. Your king is a bit weak, and I do think that the king's safety vulnerability is a high priority. So this looks suspicious. So that's why we take with the c pawn, so that after knight g4, the pawn on c4 is not under attack. I mean, okay, I mean, technically we could sacrifice it. Technically, right here. Yeah, sure, we could sacrifice it like knight g4, d takes on c4, and go for something very similar, like knight f6, bishop f6, and rook d2. Yeah, maybe, by the way, maybe it's not so bad, but probably he's gonna take with the queen. And now this pawn is like double attacked. The pawn at 2 is under attack, so we are already giving up 2 pawns. Might be too much. It looks a bit scary as well, so I think the c takes on d5. What do we gain out of this? Essentially nothing. So the c takes on d5 and then knight g4 makes a lot more sense.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.